The following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
We are back. New York Yankee baseball, past, present, and future. I'm Ralph Tyko with the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network, and one of the hosts is here. One of them isn't. Robert Deininger is here. How are you, Robert?
I'm doing good. How are you, Ralph?
Oh, good. And, Jack Degraw's not here, but...
He's here now.
He is. Jack Degraw, meet, Robert Deininger, of course. Jack,
yes.
would you like to meet Skip Lockwood, former Major League closer and a Yankee for a moment? Skip, welcome to these airwaves.
Hi, Jack. How are you? It's nice to meet you.
It's a pleasure to meet you, Skip. I've seen you pitch many times with the Mets and the Yankees and the Brewers.
The funny story I tell is that my career ended with the Red Sox in 1980, but I still had a contract offer. And the Yankees called me, and they said they'd be willing to pay my salary one more year if I'd continue to pitch with the Red Sox.
That's kind of a backhanded compliment if ever I heard one.
Well, it was a contract. It's a...
You wrote a book, Skip. We talked about it on the Met Show in a different venue on this here network. But the book is called Inside Pitch, My Life as a Major League Closer. And I want to ask you how it came to be that Fergie Jenkins, Hall of Fame pitcher, wrote the foreword.
Well, first of all, I've been friends with Fergie for years. We get to play some golf together and tell some funny stories. Some of them true, some of them not so true. He's always been a guy that I thought was, when he's in the Canadian Hall of Fame as well as the MLB Hall of Fame. We were doing clinics together for the Alumni Association, and I told him I had a book coming out. And at the clinic, he and I were both talking about visualization and being able to go out to the pitcher's mound with honor and go out there as if it's the most important thing in the world, being prepared and, getting yourself ready to pitch, the joy of putting on the uniform and buttoning up all the buttons and, going out to pitch. And when I told him I was writing a book, he said, that's important. He said, I'll write the foreword for you. And I was overwhelmed because I never thought that I would get, this kind of a guy to write the foreword for me. But I was very pleased he said so. I took him at his word, and he did. He wrote it for me. And I treasure it. I treasure having him to be the first endorser of my book.
And not only that, Skip, but another Hall of Famer writes a little blurb on the cover of your book, complimenting you profusely, and that's Tommy Terrific, Tom Seaver, another teammate of yours in your very own illustrious career. You have two Hall of Famers that mean so much to you, that you mean so much to, that they honor you by writing on your book.
I think what happens when you wear the uniform, National League, American League uniform, is you go into a fraternity, and there's a level of respect. I have met people that I played with and people I played against. The Fenway Park at 100-year anniversary a few years ago, and I got a chance to attend that. And I saw people that I had played with years and years ago, and it's like it never stops. It's like it never ended. There's a great amount of collegiality. The people never forget who played together. Tom Seaver wrote a blurb for my book, and I'm honored to have him. I talked to him before the fires out in Calistoga this year. He seems to be doing well. Nancy and Kathy, my wife, are still close. It's an honor. I have no other way to say it, to have people that I played with.
You drove in with him.
He
was your ride, you told me at one time. And that's terrific. What was it, a Porsche with a convertible Porsche?
They traded away my ride to the ballpark. Does that ever happen? I was waiting
right.
for him to come and get me, and I was expecting, because Tom has a heavy foot. And so I know when you get in the car, man, you got to hang on. You buckle up. He turns the radio on and he steps on the gas, and you're going to get to the ballpark as fast as you can. He never came, and I had to drive my old car, my old beater, into Shea Stadium that day. I didn't realize what happened until I got to the ballpark. But they traded away my ride to the ballpark, and.
There was a player that we didn't talk about on the Met show. He was a Met, but he was also a Yankee, and it was Dave Kingman, and a very enigmatic guy who gets a bad rap for an instance that he had that was very well publicized with a woman member of the press when he was out with the A's. I think it was out here, but. Notwithstanding that, you were his teammate, and perhaps you'd tell us a little bit about Dave Kingman, if you would.
Yeah, Dave Kingman, first of all, he used the biggest bat that I ever saw in my life. I think it was a 37-inch, heavy and long and big, and he used to swing that as hard as he could. Prodigious home runs. I think when he was pitching, they would call ahead to LaGuardia and put the planes in another traffic pattern so they wouldn't get in the way of some of the things that he hit. He was a monster home run hitter, and he swung for the fences every single pitch. The thing that you may not know about Dave Kingman is he wore contact lenses. And I think Shea Stadium was a dusty, dirty place. And I don't think his contact lenses were always feeling that good when he was up to bat at Shea Stadium. When I talked to him about it, those soft contact lenses were just starting to come out, but he had the old type, the old hard plastic ones. His eyes used to be red, and you could see that they were bothering him. Dave Kingman was a good friend. I knew him very well. It was awesome to watch him hit batting practice. He always hit with a purpose. I don't think he ever swung at a ball that he didn't intend to put it in orbit. He played a ferocious game, and he swung the same way. He was a leader on the Mets the years that I played there. Absolutely.
You know, very interesting. You started out as a third baseman, became a pitcher. He started out as a pitcher in college and became a position player. But that notwithstanding, I remember in '71, I was out in Northern California, went to a Giant game, and it was the year of the Fox, and Kingman was playing, and he went from first to third with those long strides, faster than anybody in baseball at the time. He was not only a terrific pitcher and a prospect as a pitcher at USC, but he was very, very fast. People don't know that about him. Did you see?
Dave Kingman Dave Kingman had a great knuckleball. And you'd play catch with it because sometimes the players would come out before the game and you'd play catch on the sidelines and, before you went out to take batting practice. If you played catch with Kingman, he was going to hit you with his knuckleball. He had the best knuckleball I've ever seen, better than Wilhelm, better than any of those guys. It would not spin. And he used to laugh, and he'd throw this thing at you, and he'd be hitting you off the knee and the feet with it, and he was terrible. He laughed. He'd just throw you that knuckleball. I can imagine he was probably a pretty good pitcher.
Absolutely. as were you, sir. Can you tell me a little bit about pitching against the Yankees and some of your experiences, given that this is a Yankee show? You spent a lot of time in the American League, started with Kansas City, I recently learned, signed by Charlie Finley, and you're one of the few in Kansas City. This was after they stopped trading with the Yankees. I wonder if you remember
they
Eddie
were feeding
Lopad.
the Yankees for years. I know it.
Was Eddie Lopad
the
general manager when you signed?
Yes. Yeah. No. It was Pat Friday was the general manager when I signed. He was an insurance executive with Charlie Finley.
Right.
I think he got fired right after I signed. I'm not sure what the reason was, but I'm just joking. He didn't get fired.
No. But
I tricked him. Pitching against the Yankees was like pitching in the Grand Canyon. It was a huge ballpark. Always were the people in the ballpark were exuberant. I mean, it was the noise level in Yankee Stadium was just tremendous. It was just so enjoyable. The problem with the Yankees is I had 2 or 3 guys I couldn't get out. One of them was Greg Nettles. I couldn't get a fastball by him. I couldn't throw the curveball for a strike, and so he'd just take that, and he'd just wear me out. He'd pull it in the gap. He'd hit it up the third baseline. I couldn't get Greg Nettles out. And another guy was Reggie Jackson. Now Reggie and I were friends. I played minor league ball with Reggie. I know Reggie very well. I was there the day he signed when he came to Modesto, California. I never saw anybody with as many gifts as Reggie Jackson had. He could run.
With the Modesto Flash, Joe Rudy.
And Joe Rudy was there too. That's right, Joe Rudy. And there's another Hall of Famer was Tony La Russa was there. Was on that team.
Didn't remember that. Modesto was their affiliate for many, many years.
Modesto Reds in the wine country.
Colorado.
Reggie Jackson had a huge swing, but I could pitch to him. If I could make the fastball hop a little bit, I could get him by him. But every now and then he'd get you. And then what you didn't want to have him do is hit the ball back up the middle, because he would hit some rockets back up the middle. I'm only 60 feet away from him, and he could hurt you. So he was a guy that I feared a lot. On the outside part of the plate, he covered that outside part of the plate. He was a fierce hitter.
I'm going to ask Robert and Jack. Start with Robert. You were here first today, young man. If you would, off the top of your head, what are you curious about Skip Lockwood's career?
Just the toughest hitters you ever faced, or who was the best out you ever got facing a batter that you're most proud of?
Every team had somebody you couldn't get out,
Yeah.
I had trouble with the first and second hitters. The guys that swung from their heels and tried to hit the ball out of the ballpark, I seem to be able to get out. Pete Rose. I had trouble getting Pete Rose out. And he was kind of a punch and Judy guy. No, I don't mean punch and Judy. I mean, it would power and everything, but he wasn't afraid to hit the ball down the third baseline. And I just could not get him out. And I'd pitch him in, and I'd pitch him out, and I'd throw it behind him, and I just had trouble. He always wore me out. And it just seemed like guys that hit like that, I just had an awful trouble trying to throw. I always try to get a strike one, strike in the heart of the play. I was pitching the 8th and 9th innings trying to get a strike one. And the guys that know that didn't make it go deep in the count. You'd have to come back with a fastball, and they'd punch it the other way. And then they'd steal second base. And they had no respect at all.
What a lineup Pete Rose played in.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Oh, yeah.
Top, bottom.
Guy named Morgan was a little tough to get out, too. Morgan had a strike zone about 6 inches tall. You couldn't get him out.
He was a little crouch. He was a short guy to begin with. But you go all the way to Perez and Bench and what have you. Who was the better defensive catcher, Bench or Grody?
I didn't throw to Bench. I never. I know obviously Johnny's in the Hall of Fame, and I think he was probably a better catcher overall. But I threw to Grody. I pitched before Stearns took over for Grody in the starting lineup. I thought Jerry Grody was the best catcher I'd ever seen. He received the ball well. Jerry Grody had a temper, and if you didn't throw it where he wanted it or you didn't have good mustard on it, he'd burn you out. He'd throw it back to you as fast as you threw it back into him. He was not a
You didn't have a mitt. And you didn't have a mitt.
No,
you had a regular glove.
And I'm fair game out there. And he used to burn me out. He used to throw it back so hard, and he'd throw it back right at your knees. So you had to turn the glove over to catch it and to catch you in the pocket. I thought Jerry Grody was a great catcher. I really did. I enjoyed throwing to him.
Now, you said before John Stearns got there, John Stearns was pretty good in his own right.
I pitched well to John. I had games that I had great saves with John, and we had chemistry, John and I. But Jerry Grody was the kind of guy that would come to you after a game and put his arm around you and talk about the game. And before the game would start, he would come to you and go over the hitters and tell you, what was going on. If you were having a conference on the mound, you wanted Jerry Grody out there. Jerry would find something. He'd help you. He would not tell you a falsehood. If you didn't have what he wanted, he would ask you for it in a polite manner. I always had chemistry with Stearns, but I just felt like Grody and I had simpatico. We were on the same page.
Gotcha. Very, very well said. Would you tell us about what it was like to be a Yankee in spring training? You told me on another show about getting beat out right at the end. It was such a privilege when I was released by the Kansas City by the Angels. So I got a letter in the mail that they were going to release me, and that puts you you go down. And then I got another letter saying the Yankees wanted me. So being wanted by the Yankees and getting a chance to go to New York was such a high. At that point in my career, I thought it was over. I was going to make a comeback. I was going to be in pinstripes. It was just extraordinary to get a chance to wear that uniform, even the spring training uniform. It was just amazing. I loved it. Do you have old timers come back and instruct? Is that their tradition?
The Yankees always say, well, Willie Mays was always around. The Mets, I don't remember. Yeah, with the Mets, Willie was always there. I don't remember who the coaches were, instructors were the Yankees that year. I do remember a guy that you may remember. His name was Father Joe Dispenza. He was a priest from the Bronx. And Father Joe was always around the Yankees clubhouse. If you knew Father Joe Dispenza. And he was a sweetheart. And he was a guy that you'd love to see come in. Being a Yankee even for a month was just a privilege for me. I enjoyed it very much.
Nice. Who was that Hall of Famer? Tell us who they decided to keep over you.
Reggie, it was Catfish Hunter. Was the guy that they decided to keep instead of me. And I don't know whether that decision was a very smart decision on their part.
Well, They took a shot. They had the money to spend.
They took a shot,
You make decisions. It doesn't always work out.
I know. And that was over at
Jack Degraw. What do you have to say to Skip Lockwood?
I would like to ask Skip, what was it like to pitch for the Seattle Pilots?
Well, that was 1969.
That's a whole nother show.
Dozen of baseball,
Yeah.
That was. Well, first of all, nobody came to Sick's Stadium, so before the game started, you could actually go up in the stadium and introduce yourself to everybody that was there, if you wanted. There was nobody there. That was a crazy ball club. They had a draft that drafted unprotected players for that club. So by definition, you were getting the players that the other teams didn't want. I remember they had a tough time trying to pick somebody for an All-Star game because every team had to be represented on the All-Star team, on the All-Star game. I think they finally took Mike Hegan and maybe Marty Patton to be on the All-Star team, but they had trouble finding, I think, a guy that had a decent season to pick. I think Mike.
You know who I want to ask you about off that team, and you could say Jim Bouton, of course, but I'm curious about Tommy Davis, who I think was headed for the Hall of Fame before he broke his ankle. He had incredible skills. What was it like?
I remember him as a leader. When you have a team of misfits like that, and you have a guy like Tommy, and who stands out as a leader and a gentleman, it was incredible to have him in the locker room. And I think today, when you see clubs win, you see somebody leading. You see David Ortiz. You see Thurman Munson. I mean, you see somebody in the locker room that is a present force for leadership. Tommy was an extraordinary leader, a gentleman, led by example. What a player! He was just awesome.
Okay. Speaking of leaders, who were the leaders when you played in Kansas City? It was late in right before they moved to Oakland, basically, and they were building a really solid team that went on to win 5 divisions in a row, wrapped around 3 World Series champions. Who was the leader of that team when you were coming up in the minors?
Well, what happened is Kansas City had a crop of young players. I think they drafted 35 or 40 young players in high school, college. And what I remember is Reggie was a leader, certainly. Sal Bando was a guy that made me pitch because he took my job at third base. He was an awfully good leader. Rick Mundy was a great leader. There was a guy named Blue Moon Odom who had great potential, great skills. We were all kids, so I think if I had to look back, I would have to say Bando and Rick Mundy were the 2 that led that club to the World Championships. Okay,
let's talk about your book before I forget. It's called Inside Pitch: My Life as a Major League Closer, and you have a foreword by Fergie Jenkins. Tom Seaver writes a blurb on the book, on the cover. What made you think, I've got all these stories, but what made you think you could be a writer? I'll ask you that. That takes moxie.
Well, it takes time. Trying to write something down.
But not just time. You have to have a certain mindset that, what I have to say is interesting. And I'm going to go about it.
The thing that I always felt in writing was I had authenticity. If I tell you a story, it may not be factually accurate. I may misremember it, but it has the authenticity because I wore the uniform. And the way I approached this book is I wanted to tell baseball in slow motion. I wanted people to be able to come out on the field and see it and feel it and sweat with me and get nervous with me and have their mortgage on the line like my mortgage was on the line when you pitched. I wanted them to feel the pressure. I wanted them to feel the joy, the funny stories, the bad stories, the stories that you and I would tell if we were getting a beer at a bar someplace. The stories I would tell you, I wanted those stories to come out. And so I spent several years just writing everything down. And then I spent another year trying to organize it so that it would work out well, have a beginning, a middle, and an end. The reason I wrote it is because people ask me, what is it like to play? And I can't really tell them because I can only drink one beer. And if this book takes you out there, it gives you a chance to experience a young man in baseball uniform. And I grew up in that uniform, and I played for many years. It gives you a chance to experience what I went through and how I went through it and why I went through it. That's
Skip,
why I wrote
when
it.
you were a little kid, was there a moment when you said, I've got the skill, I think I'm going to be a big leaguer, I think I have enough talent that can be developed, or was there a conscious moment of that?
The opening story is about a Little League game that I had, and I was pretty good as a Little Leaguer. And whether or not epiphany happened when I was in that uniform or not, I don't exactly remember. But I do remember going to the ballpark every day of my life without a long-term contract, knowing that I had to perform today. I didn't have the luxury of saying, well, if I don't get him out today, I'll get the ball tomorrow. I always felt like a guy falling out of an airplane, that I had to find the right thing right now. I had to find the pitch. I had to throw strikes. It was a day-to-day adventure for me. So that you asked me the question, did I ever know as a youngster? I will tell you the answer is I never knew at all that I was a major leaguer. And I always fought to keep that uniform on and to get the other guys out. I never felt comfortable, with it until maybe my career was over. And then I looked back and I said, gee, I should have enjoyed that more. It's over now,
Yeah, but with the day-to-day pressures, and for the bulk of your career, it was before free agency, so that people weren't signing long-term contracts and what have you. Tremendous amount of pressure. Robert, Skip Lockwood. Robert Deininger.
Is there one team in particular that you hated to face during your career?
In the National League, I had trouble with Cincinnati. I had a lot of trouble with Chicago as a team. And Chicago was a terrible place to play. First of all, when I pitched out there, we had day games. So, nighttime ball, they didn't have any lights. So it was different playing day games, constant day games out there all the time at a good ball club. I think it would probably have to be Cincinnati. They just had a monster club. I had trouble with them. Philadelphia was at the top of the list too. It seemed like I played people in our division. We saw them every other week. I see them all the time. And I was a one-pitch pitcher. I just had a cross-seam fastball. I had a little curveball I used to throw up there for show. I was basically a one-pitch pitcher. I could make it hop a little bit, and I could find the corners, but there was no magic, no secret to what I was trying to do, for sure.
Well, you mentioned on another show that, Skip, that the secret to being a good relief pitcher is this rubber arm thing. You didn't start out as a relief pitcher. You started out as a position player, and even then, even when you became a pitcher, it wasn't automatically, I'm a closer now. Did you have to develop the rubber arm, or was that something you had and people saw, scouts or coaches saw, said, well, we can make this guy into a closer? How'd that come about?
I think you get stronger as a relief pitcher if you pitch every day. I think the arm got stronger, got better with 3 or 4 days a week when you'd pitch. It's not easy to become a starting pitcher because you have so many days to wait in between starts. And as you may know, I'm pretty intense. And I would try as hard as I could. And if I didn't work out, if I lost or if whatever it was, I had to wait 4 more days to get a chance to pitch again. And by that time, I was crazy ready to go out there and kind of work myself into a frenzy. And a lot of times I wasn't good. At least as being a relief pitcher, I got a chance to pitch, 2 or 3 times in a row. And not to say that they weren't all very important, but I knew that my arm was strong and healthy, and I would know that 3 or 4 times a week. Versus if I was starting, I might not get a chance to pitch, 1 week to another. So I thought being a relief pitcher was easier for me than being a starting pitcher in many ways.
Okay. Before I turn you over to Jack, he's got some more questions. I want to ask, was there ever a time when your hitting skills really helped you help yourself as a pitcher? And came up as a third baseman, position player, and it must have been, you must have saved the game. You must have won a game or two, or at least saved a game or two based on your hitting.
My first game pitching in the big leagues, I was pitching in AAA. Milwaukee was going to play the Braves. The Brewers were going to play the Braves. The Braves had been out of town for 3 or 4 years. They were coming back in for an exhibition game. Hank Aaron, Clemente, all these guys, major heroes, Hall of Famers. And the Brewers were terrible. They had gotten the whole bullpen is all beaten up. The starting pitcher was beaten up, so they didn't want to burn a pitcher in an exhibition game. So they called me up. I had a 2-way ticket. I was going back to Portland, Oregon to pitch in the PCL. I came in the morning to pitch, and I pitched. And in the 7th inning of the game, I finished that game and won the game 2-1. In the 7th inning, I hit a home run. My first at bat in the American League for a long time.
Oh, wow. That has got to be real city.
They kept me. They kept me partially because of my hitting. No, I'm just lying. No, I got a chance.
Who told you were coming up to the big leagues? So who in the minors, a coach or a manager, came up to you?
I don't remember that. I don't remember. Okay. I think it was probably a phone call from the front office.
Okay. That had to be a thrill, too. How long had you spent in the minors?
Well, I had a good spring training. I thought I was going to make the major league team. If you remember, the pilots were sold to Milwaukee the last week of spring training. And so we didn't know we were going to Milwaukee at all. We always thought we were going to Seattle. In fact, the luggage, the truck with the luggage on it and the bats and the balls and the uniforms and everything had already left spring training heading towards Seattle. The team, with no uniforms or anything, left in the plane. We went to Milwaukee. And so we got to Milwaukee we had to use the spring training uniforms that the Seattle team had.
How about the caps? I'm just curious about that. Were they sew on?
Oh, those were great caps. Come on, those were the best caps ever. They had little braided rims around them.
Yes.
Little line in Seattle. I wish I'd kept those caps. Those sweet caps.
Yes, I'm a big cap. It was McAuliffe Cap Company back in those days, if I remember. It was before New Era came in, and they really made caps with leather sweatbands and this, that, and the other thing.
I didn't know you were supposed to take the cardboard out of those caps. I always got the caps. I put the caps on, and I'd wear them for a month or two, and then somebody would say, "Well, you got the back and the backing still in. That cardboard stuff's supposed to come out." I didn't know you were supposed to take that cardboard out.
Rookie.
That's a rookie, and you don't peek the hats, right? That was a rookie mistake too. Where that Kansas City hat, I peeked it. You know how you used to peek them when you were in high school?
Yeah.
You're not supposed to do that in the big leagues. Yeah, that's a rookie mistake.
And the way you put them on too, you put the black guys would put the cap on from the back to the front. The white guys would put the cap on from the front to the back. So.
Well, I don't have any hair now, so I don't know how I put the cap on anymore.
It's not a problem. Gray and
not
no
a problem
hair.
Anymore.
Is that what you're saying? So what hair you do have is gray. I just want to say congratulations for living long enough to have
that. Ralph, you're kind. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. Gentlemen, this has been great.
Well, let Jack ask a question or two and close it out. I really, we've had a lot of your time on the Met show and this, but Jack, a quick question, if you would.
Okay, Skip. Just the philosophy and pitching from the 70s to now, because you played with a lot of great pitchers: Ryan, Tanana, Matlack, Seaver, Kuzman, and these guys threw 250, 280 innings. And nowadays, it's like if a pitcher hits 200, it's just a different ball game with a pitch count.
There's a lot of specialty today. In today's game, the players get protected. The pitch count protects the players, protects the contract, protects the team, and in the same way puts that player out on the field more for the fans to see. The philosophy, as Yogi Berra says, once the fat lady sings and you have to go out on the field, the philosophy, I think, is still the same. You're supposed to score more runs than the other team. But the pitching is way different today. You mentioned some great names, Matlack, Kuzman. Those guys were pitchers with pride, and they went out there for a purpose. And they pitched with all their pitches. Today, the difference I see today is that the pitchers pitch away from the strike zone. They pitch inside with a fastball that can't possibly be hit because it's a ball. Then they throw you a changeup or a fork ball away, hoping that you'll dig for that. They throw back-to-back changeup. If I ever threw a back-to-back changeup, Rube Walker, the pitching coach with the Mets, would run out and scream at me. That was not what you were supposed to do. You're supposed to get your good stuff and get these guys out with your good stuff. The philosophy in pitching has changed. Now they pitch away from the strike zone. They pitch to the batter's weakness. And I think that's changed the way they recruit kids and the way they bring them up and what pitches they teach them. It certainly has changed the dynamic of the game a lot. You see guys put the shift on because they only know that the guy's going to hit a ball on the inside part of the plate. He's going to hit a breaking ball or a changeup in there. You can move your shortstop over to play left field, right field. So I think it's changed the game enormously, and I think the philosophy absolutely has changed.
Are you happy in the direction the game is going in?
I am. I see it as a very entertaining sport. I think as a game was made for replays and second guessing. New York and Boston are places where the teams and the games are played and discussed for 12 months out of the year. I think the game is in good hands. I know the players are in better shape. If you go to the game today, it's theater. It's you see, if you go there early, you see great batting practice, you see great athletic ability. I think that the game is played by enormously talented athletes today, where when I played, you had guys that would do one thing well, hit home runs really well, or steal bases, or they would be fastball pitchers. But today, I think you're seeing better athletes, and I think the game's improved. I think the coverage is improved. I love to see players being announcers, getting a chance to talk about the game from the inside out. I watch it with a great deal of enthusiasm. I think it's in great shape.
Good. I'd like you to be a podcaster on this network, and you'd be an announcer someday. You get some experience, and you can tell your story.
I've got 12 more years of stories you haven't asked about yet.
Pardon me?
I said I've got 12 more years of stories we haven't even talked about yet.
I know. You can come back every week, and I'll talk to you every week, and we'll plug your book every week, and you'll have your own show. Skip Lockwood will entitle the show the same as the book. Big League Closer.
Sounds great to me.
All right, Skip. I'll talk to you via email right in the next day or so, and this has been terrific. That's the best thing I can tell you. It's fun.
Jack and Rob, thank you very much. Ralph, I enjoyed it. It's been good to talk with you.
Thank you very much, Skip Lockwood. The host is Jack Degraw, and hosts Robert Deininger. I'm Ralph Tyko with the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. I'm the weak link of it all. But I got talent around me. And next time we'll talk about Joe Torre, and who was your manager with the Mets and a future manager of the Yankees then. So thank you again, Skip.
Do it.
Robert,
night,
Jack,
guys.
I enjoyed your company tonight. And we'll be back with the Yankee show next week. Adios.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Good night, guys.
Good night.
I got timed out of it.